We will call the meeting to order, and Sue Owen will be our Sue Owen today and do the roll call.
Okay, Board Member Barkas is absent. Board Member Doyle.
Here.
Mike DeBoer. Board Member Cease.
Here.
Board Member Wakeman.
Here.
Board Member Chambers. Board Member Lintemuth. Board Member Davis. Here. And Chairman Jim Reagan.
Here. We need a motion to approve the absences of those. Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Eric, is there a second?
Second.
Brian, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And we need another motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Brian, is there a second?
Second.
Eric, any corrections or changes to that? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting from October 6th. Actually, it says October 5 on there, Susie.
Third.
Well, on the agenda, it says approval of the minutes from October 6th. And then on
The meeting minutes are October 6th.
Okay. Oh, maybe the...
The financial report was October 5th.
Yeah, okay, that's it. Okay. That's not a correction.
No correction.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes from October 6th?
I'll make motion.
Okay. And is there a second?
Hard to do that when I wasn't there.
Right.
Ditto.
Okay. Rick, you there?
I'll second.
Okay, Rick seconded. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the treasurer's report for today, Sue.
Okay. The DDA currently has $713,000 in cash. $677,270 has been received in TIF revenue so far this fiscal year. We're expected to receive close to $800,000 in TIF revenues. A payment was recently made for the City Hall air conditioning system in the amount of $115,251, of which $120,000 was budgeted in this year's budget. Also, payments have been made for all the chamber activities, marketing, Christmas, and the concerts.
Okay, any questions for Sue? Need a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Eric, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Davis. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Public comments for items not in the agenda? Brandon? Okay, we'll move on to old business. Warming fires for 2023.
Yeah, so, as you know, during COVID, we put the warming fires in place where we were actually staffing them with either a DPW or a fire employee, and obviously we were paying for the firewood and things of that nature. Been having discussions with some of the merchants, mainly Martha, about continuing these. We didn't have one for Christmas and Lowell, because quite honestly, I didn't even think about it. But and then at Christmas time, the chamber always does their own, and they didn't need assistance from us. But there have been times during events that they've been requested. That being said, we're back to 100% capacity in all of our restaurants. All the pandemic restrictions have been alleviated. So from where I sit, the question is this something that we should continue to do? Yeah, it's budgeted, but is it needed? And from where I sit, I'm not so sure about that. That being said, there's pros and cons to that. They were a nice thing. The biggest issues obviously are logistics of doing that. We have to staff it the fire chief basically wants somebody staffing those fires, whether it's a DPW employee, or a part-time firefighter, or one of our on-call firefighters, just to make sure everything's okay. The question then becomes is, well, okay, one of the things that wasn't a big issue last year because, we still didn't know what was going on. It really wasn't an issue. Plus we had, like in the DPW did it most of the time, and the person who did it for us was a part-time employee, it wasn't relatively an issue. As we move forward, that individual really is really pulled back and working with the city, and if we did it with the city, I'd be paying overtime in the likes possibly of up to $50 an hour to have somebody stand out there, which to me just makes absolutely no sense. If I wasn't, I'm a taxpayer in the city of Lowell, and if I had no idea what was going on with the city, and I'm driving through downtown and I see on a Saturday, a firefighter or a DPW employee tending fires, my question is going to be, well, we're paying money for that, but I can't get my street fixed. Things of those natures always come up. But so I started doing some research on it, and was asking other communities who had social districts statewide to see if they were still having people tend their fires. Because we weren't the only one doing it. There were a number of cities that were doing it. And all of them that I'm aware of have pulled away from that practice. However, coming to that came up with another idea. There's some communities that what they've done is they've gone to those gas fire pits, fire places that are on timers. So basically, you go to the fire if you want to. Any time of the year, really, you could do it, and they would be connected by natural gas. You could be there, and gather, and every 10 minutes the timer comes off, and it's basically just as simple as pushing a button and turning it back on, and it seems to be relatively popular. I know, for example, downtown Allegan does this. They recently did this, and I haven't done a lot of research with it because, I wasn't so sure the fire chief would even be on board with this because, when we talked about putting the social district in place, we had looked at the time about looking at the propane heaters and some other types of fire alternatives instead of the firewood. And the fire chief at the time, he really didn't want us to do that. So I did have a conversation with the fire chief because there was Martha had gathered some numbers as to the costs going forward for the fire department to tend the fires. I talked to the fire chief about it, and even from his staffing issue, he's like, we can do this, but he's kind of the nature of I don't know how much longer I want to do this. So I started talking to him about the idea of the fire pits, and he was actually on board with it. He said, if it's something to where, it's tied to a timer and something like that nature, he goes, you wouldn't need anyone standing there, and it goes away. So I'm going to show you a picture of the one from Allegan, if you can see it. If I need to turn lights off, I will.
Looks like a grass fire to me.
I know.
Is it like one of those ones that, I don't know if you've seen them at the breweries, where they stand up tall and they're outside and they have...
I want to go to Allegan myself and see it myself to give you a better... What I kind of envision it as is, I don't know if you've been to Comerica Park, where if you go on the left field concourse, there's a, I don't know what bar it is now, but there used to be the Tiger Club in center field, and then behind the bleachers in left field, there was always one of those fire things that would run, and it was no firewood. It was like glass stones or what have you, and it was pretty nice. And it worked. It looked pretty clean. I would want to go. I'll be honest with you. I would want to go get more information, go see it for myself, because I don't know. And then that being said, I don't know what it costs, but my thought is maybe the solution is if we wanted to continue moving forward with this, we could look at this option for somewhere along the Riverwalk. And, you know, I don't know what it would cost. Like I said, I would want to talk to the city manager in Allegan a little bit more and get some more information from him. But, you know, I could see us, you know, if this is something we want to do, I could even see possibly even going to like the community foundation and maybe seeing if they would partner with us in, you know, in doing this.
Well, Mike, with the bars all at full capacity now, how many people are going outside?
That's the next question. I myself, I know Martha might be able to explain a little better. I never really saw, when the days we had them and I would drive by, I didn't see a lot of people out there.
Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's all I ever see.
Right, and then the other, like my kids used to live across the street from the Riverwalk, my stepkids, and they would say to me, Mike, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the question is, do we even do it? I don't know. That's why bringing it to the board decide.
I drive by that New Union,
Mhm.
and I don't see many people outside
No, I don't either.
when it's really cold, and, you know, that doesn't cost us anything.
No.
So the real idea was to try to help businesses maintain their level of business
During that
during that period of time.
That was the
When in
intent.
fact, these ended up being just drinking sites
Right,
for the bars.
right.
And I know for a fact that I stopped down when you first started it,
Mhm.
and there were 6 people over there on the Riverwalk, and I know for a fact that 5 of them didn't even live in the city of Lowell.
Right.
And then I also noticed that a lot of the stores are just already closed
Mhm.
at, you know, earlier in the evening
Right.
than what they used to be. So,
They're not open.
I think, can I say something?
Sure.
I think what we're talking about here is more on special event type things, when we know that we're gonna have people out and about walking around, especially in the cold. Because like, for example, Christmas through Lowell, you know, we thought, oh, that would be a good idea to have one then. Or we have the chocolate stroll coming up, which is a merchant planned event. And that's during the day, it's gonna be cold outside, so that's why we were asking like if we could have the warming fire out there. So we're not talking like consistently, but we are talking just on special occasions.
not the plan that originally
Exactly.
was, so it's
Yeah.
more for special events. I can
Right.
see-
And last year, we were only doing it on special events. Once it was full capacity, I think it was like once a month during the winter months, maybe twice once in a while, but we weren't doing it very often.
So like 3 or 4 times a year?
The dates are in the back.
Well, those will be the dates that we're proposed for this year. I want to say, we probably ran those fires maybe once or twice, 2 weekends a month during like December, January, February, March, and I think we did one in April, and then we stopped. Because there was one I remember we had kind of planned, but the weather was going to be warm, and we just didn't do it.
Can I just ask a clarifying
Sure.
question from your comment earlier? You said you checked with a bunch of other municipalities.
Yep.
And they're not, did you mean that they're not having people tend the fires that they have, or that they
They're
just
not
didn't
having
want
them,
the fires
period.
all?
Yeah, they're not
Okay, that's what I
having-
thought, I
yeah.
just wanted to make sure.
They're not having, so I reached out to a number of communities that I know have social districts. And quite frankly, we have no intention of getting rid of the social district.
Right,
But the question was, are they even doing them? And nobody's doing them where they're manually doing these anymore. Not even for like special events. Everyone I talked to said, matter of fact, like in Rockford, they got away from them completely because the businesses complained. But during the conversation, the discussion, a couple communities was like, well, you know, we don't do that anymore, but we did this. So I thought, well,
That's where that came
yeah, that's where that came from.
gotcha.
So,
This
That makes
looks like a
sense.
larger permanent.
right. Oh, it would be permanent, yes.
Yeah,
But it could be used year round, it could be used any time.
right.
Somebody could just push the button.
I mean, that is really cool.
No, it is. Yeah. I want to see it. I want to go down myself and see it.
Yeah, I would like to see that too, because I'd like to see where it sits or whatever. But I guess what we were talking about, since we have the warming fires, we put money into them already. We just wanted to pull them out, and you said $50 an hour person. Lori calculated $25 an hour.
That's for fire department, but if you're doing my DPW guys, it could range anywhere between, for overtime, it could range anywhere between $40 to $50 an hour.
Okay.
We were paying somebody a lot cheaper, one of our part-time people before, but he's not doing it, so it would require me to use a DPW person. Then you always run the risk that if we get a foot of snow, that DPW person's not gonna be tending a fire, he's gonna be out plowing snow. So there's always that.
Do you see it as a detriment if we didn't have a fire there during those events?
We are looking at it for ambiance, obviously, as a merchant, thing, because it draws attention. Whenever Flat River Grill has their little thing right out front, everybody notices it right away, and it draws attention to our businesses. So that was the reason why we were asking for it to be out there during special occasions. Not year-round, not like before, but we have them. We thought, why not use them,
So I'm looking over the numbers, and from my perspective, what you're suggesting makes a lot of sense based on the numbers here, and that was from the fire department. Now, am I understanding correctly that this email from Brenda about $25 per hour, that's not, Mike, you're saying that's not correct?
I'm not saying that's fire department's number, that's their number.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So if they have somebody that can cover these times,
That's what
that would be the correct
That would be their
cost.
charge, yeah.
But if they don't, then it would go to the DPW.
The DDA would, the DDA has this budgeted. We budgeted, I think, the high end amount. We were very conservative when we budgeted it. So it's not that the money's not there.
Sure.
But the fact is that, where before I was paying my part-time guy $16 an hour, I believe,
Right.
to go out there. Now I'm paying, that's really not there. I gotta pay on overtime $40 to $50 an hour, if not even a little, depending on who, it might even actually be a little bit more.
But I think Lori checked on these dates with the fire
Oh,
department.
that was my
Yeah, they check with the fire department, yeah.
So this would be inaccurate
Right.
For the fire department, yes.
for the fire
If
department,
they can,
for
and
those.
the fire, this was given, because I did talk to the fire chief about this. This was given to Lori, but the fire chief at the time didn't say, yeah, we can do all these dates, but this is what it would be,
Gotcha.
because it's their staffing issues, so.
Okay, well, that's definitely something we could check on
Right,
again.
and I'd be happy to, I can talk to Shannon about that.
During those special events last year, were they used?
I felt like they were used last year. I mean, whenever we'd see them out, there were people that were standing around them, definitely for special events, yeah, especially if it was cold outside.
How many locations are we talking about?
We're only talking about one.
Yeah, we put one out.
Because the other one wasn't as well used
Mhm.
down at the far end, but the one that's like closest to the corner here on by Flat River Grill, that one was used.
And that makes sense because it's closer to Main Street and it's visible.
Right.
Since we have money set away,
Well, we have the money, it's just a matter of, is this something we continue to do and how long?
yeah.
And then, or do we want to maybe look at another option? Which is what
How about a coin-operated gas?
I don't know if that exists, but
If we got the money and we have the equipment, and even if it's $1,000 a year, you're not gonna be able to build a plumb gas line and build that thing for probably less than $15,000 or $20,000.
right, no, you probably won't. I mean, it's gonna, over time, it's definitely gonna cost more to do this. But it's really the logistical issues of actually having to staff somebody out there.
Yeah.
Right.
And is that the best thing to do anymore? And where I sit, my thought is no. Because I just don't, especially if the fire department, if they can't do it, then we gotta do it. And then, is that something we should continue to do? And
I'd do it one more year.
that's kind of where I'm at with it,
Keep-
yeah.
And
Keep
monitor
a
it.
tally of it,
Mhm.
and if it's not being used,
Mhm.
then
And I think, I think if it was, if there was 4 or 5 restaurants that were in here advocating for this, and, you know, their capacity was overflowing, that they didn't have enough people, and, you know, it all started the reverse, you know, because their capacity was so limited. So I think it's okay to maintain the social districts, that's fine, but I'd really encourage the city to monitor through the police department, public comments about the social district, is that being abused or not? And so far, I don't believe it has, but just keep that on your radar.
We've always been, yeah, we've been monitoring it. Sometimes, you know, we had a lot of issues with police staffing last year. We're really down in our police department with part-time officers, and we didn't cover a lot of shifts. So like, I didn't see a lot of I don't hear a lot of problems. The only times you really had problems, if there were even problems, would be during the concert events. Because I did see a number of times where, you know, I would see somebody walking around with a beer can, and that wasn't the intent of the social district. Were those people doing that before the social district? Probably, but they weren't as visible about it. And by the time you get an officer over there to say, hey, knock it off, you know, the first year it wasn't, you know, the first year of the social district wasn't an issue because we always assigned a police officer to the concerts but this past summer, that was not possible, and I anticipate some major changes in how we provide police service with our police department in the next year. We're probably going to end up having to add more full-time staff, but that's going to deter. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be at those events, because the part-timers, one, they're not there. We can't assign the part-timers because they're not there anymore. So it's.
And do people know that they can't bring their own beer?
I mean,
That should be
I think that's probably a message that probably with the chamber probably needs to
they do.
might need to do when they
It's
promote
always
it.
been in my announcements. I mean,
Yeah, I figured it has.
and we never had so many big crowds as we had last year, and I don't remember any problems we had.
There were no problems, but I did see, there were a number of times I saw people walking around with beer cans.
Right, but they weren't
Yeah.
causing a
No,
problem.
no, absolutely
They were just
not.
violating the rule.
Correct.
Right.
Which, you know, we gotta, you know, we do gotta monitor, because if we don't, you know, LCC might get involved. But I don't think it was ever to the, you know, I don't think it was ever to the nature of that level.
Right.
But, you know, it is, you know, it's something we
There are
monitor.
other violators, not just during those for our social district.
Oh,
as
no,
well.
Right.
Yeah, oh no,
So,
there's been a couple of interesting things
Yeah.
down on the Riverwalk as of late.
Well,
so.
it's not just on Riverwalk.
Yeah,
It's
no.
businesses.
Right, yeah,
That we have to monitor.
that too, yes.
So,
But I know, like Brian said, you have to just kind of monitor it another year, but I wouldn't put any more resources into, you know, the gas thing or anything like that. 'cause
There's no payback to it.
No, there is, I mean, other than, you know, it can be used year round, it's an ambiance attraction, but you're right, there's no payback, I would agree.
Well, there's not that many dates, you know, hopefully that's, you know, kind of accommodate those special events, whether it's
So-
night out or chocolate night or whatever. You know, if it helps the merchants and stuff, that's fine. I just don't want to detract from the restaurants too. So I'd like-
So, when we say we're only gonna do this for another year, are we saying we just do it through the winter, or are you talking about calendar year?
The fire,
The fires, yes.
just during your special events,
During the whole calendar year, or until
No.
the spring?
just while it's cold.
Right, but what I'm asking is next November and December, maybe what we should do is revisit it before November and
Yeah.
December.
So this is a calendar year,
That's what they, yeah, that's what they
calendar year
provided.
2023.
But-
those are the dates that we were requesting.
Right, but I would have, what I would do right now is I would just tell the fire, you know, if you're on board with us, I'd have the fire department on the, well, it looks like.
So we only have one more event in February, and
Okay.
then the next one would be October, so.
Is this something that we would want to just do in February and then come back and discuss for October and November and December and the following?
I see that they've thrown in potentially a couple Saturday nights in January, February. Hey, I don't see any harm in giving it one more try with some other dates too,
Okay.
since we have it allotted in the budget.
Okay.
I think it makes sense to go ahead with as what Martha has here. But I really, like Brian and Rick both, and actually I think Dr. Reagan said that too. I think I would be very interested to see how many people are using it.
Yeah,
And that would inform.
I could ask, I mean, I could try and ask the fire, the fire department to keep a number, but they
Right,
may or may not do that.
right, that's
If you
understandable.
pick dates, if you're gonna add dates on Saturday nights in January and February, I'd be happy to monitor those for you.
The numbers?
Yep. Yep.
So I guess my question is, what dates do we want before, let's just say
Let's talk
April?
about it in June.
Yeah, but I mean, for up until, let's say, April 30th, are we just talking about one day, February 11th?
No,
Or do we want
I
to
got a
do,
couple more days. and-
or do you want to do like a, do we want to pick up, maybe late January and then a night late February and then maybe,
How about the chamber pickup? Unless you know their schedule, maybe they have.
How about the fire department picket?
We could check with the fire department.
I'll talk to Shannon.
Okay.
If they can come up with 3 dates, January, February,
Okay,
in addition to the February 11th one that's scheduled here, then I'd go with that.
all right, I'll talk to Shannon.
That'd give it a better test.
Okay.
We have to take any action on that?
No, I think we're good with the direction you're giving me.
Anything for new business?
I have nothing.
Reports and member comments? Glad to have one.
We're back to, yeah, I think we can do it again, so.
There's no kissing and hugging back there, okay?
We're fine.
I'll need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Okay, is there a second? Second by
Eric?
Eric. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Stay here.
Let the door